Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere! This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 3 2023 NFL predictions. Well, after last week, getting 500 on both my against the spread and straight up picks, let's just say for the Fanatic this week, it's been one of his most successful weeks overall in picking, definitely against the spread. And straight up, I am a winner this week so far, with 2 games to go, with New Orleans at Carolina and Cleveland at Pittsburgh tonight. I have those 2 games. I have New Orleans and Cleveland both winning against the spread and straight up outright. But overall, though, I am in a very good spot with my picks this week. So this past week against the spread, currently right now, I am 10-4 against the spread, and straight up, I am 9-5. 10-4. I rarely ever get double-digit victories against the spread, but every one of the games that I hedged, I was able to actually win outright. So a few of the games I had against the spread, or straight-up losses I had, they ended up turning out to be against the spread victories, such as Seattle beating Detroit, Baltimore beating Cincinnati, and I forget the other one. And I just want to say, to Sean McVay, as someone that bet the Rams +8, +8.5, I salute you for kicking that useless field goal to get the backdoor cover that no Niners Rams against the spread picker deserved, and I will gladly take that as one of my wins. So yeah, definitely going 10-4, a tremendous accomplishment for me, and I hope I can build on this, because for the first time in a while, I actually have a little bit of a cushion against the spread overall to build on my records. But just for clarity though, against the spread 10-4, straight up 9-5, so that equals 71.4% this week against the spread, and straight up that is 64.3% straight up. So overall for the year though now, against the spread, I am 18-12 against the spread. That is phenomenal. That is 60% against the spread. I was just watching Colin Cowherd a little earlier, and right now he is 0-9 in his Blazing 5 pick. So I'm doing significantly better picking every game compared to one of the interesting media heads of the sports media world. Though I am very happy with that. Straight up though, 17-13, a little disappointing for my straight up starts. That's 56.7%, 57 if you round, and I am just going to try my best to build off these next 2 games. Getting an 11-win week for the second week, that'd be pretty good. That gets you to 19-13, which I was about 20, so I'm about at that 10-win threshold a week. I hope I can rebound very much so nicely for the next week. But definitely, though, overall, against the spread, best start I've ever had. Highest winning percentage I have against the spread with the picks I made. And I am thrilled to see if I can continue that into this coming week. Alright, so I will talk about everything that went on in all the games throughout my picks, but let me get to my Week 3 predictions. So this Thursday, when the 1-1 New York Giants travel to San Francisco in San Francisco's home opener to take on the 2-0 San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers are 10.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take San Francisco here, minus 10.5, and San Francisco straight up. Then on Sunday, when the 1-1 Tennessee Titans travel to Cleveland to take on the 1-1 or 2-0 Cleveland Browns, the Cleveland Browns are 3.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Cleveland here straight up, but I'm going to take Tennessee plus 3.5. The next game, when the 2-0 Atlanta Falcons travel to Detroit to take on the 1-1 Detroit Lions, the Detroit Lions are 3.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Detroit here minus 3.5 and Detroit straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-0 or 1-1 New Orleans Saints travel to Green Bay to take on the 1-1 Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers are 2-point favorites in this game. So, in one of my 3 outright upsets of the week, I'm actually going to go with New Orleans here, +2, and New Orleans straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-2 Denver Broncos travel to Miami to take on the 2-0 Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins are 6.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Miami here, minus 6.5. And Miami straight up. Then the next game, in the Desperation Bowl, if you will, when the 0-2 Los Angeles Chargers take on the 0-2 Minnesota Vikings in the biggest choking hazard in all of professional football when these two teams meet. This game is no surprise, a pick'em game. In this game, I am going to take the Minnesota Vikings here against the spread in a pick'em and Minnesota straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-2 New England Patriots travel to New York to play the 1-1 New York Jets, the New England Patriots are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me the New England Patriots here -3 and the New England Patriots straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-1 Buffalo Bills travel to Washington to take on the 2-0 Washington Commanders, the Buffalo Bills are 6.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Buffalo here straight up, but give me the Washington Commanders +6.5. Then the next game, when the 0-2 Houston Texans travel to Jacksonville to take on the 1-1 Jacksonville Jaguars, the Jacksonville Jaguars are 9.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Jacksonville Jaguars here -9.5 and the Jacksonville Jaguars straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-1 Indianapolis Colts travel to Baltimore, where the former Baltimore team comes back to Baltimore to take on the 2-0 Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens are 8-point favorites in this game. Give me the Baltimore Ravens here -8 and the Baltimore Ravens straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-2 or 1-1 Carolina Panthers travel to Seattle to take on the 1-1 Seattle Seahawks, the Seattle Seahawks are 4.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Seattle here -4.5 and Seattle straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-2 Chicago Bears travel to Kansas City to take on the 1-1 Kansas City Chiefs, the Kansas City Chiefs, and this is the biggest line of the week so far, are 13-point favorites to defeat the Chicago Bears. If this was 10, I was going to go with it, but after last time I checked from last night to right now, it is a 13-point game that is a little bit too rich for my blood, even though I know Chicago hasn't been great. But I'm going to take Chicago here +13, but give me the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously, straight up. Then the next game, in kind of the odd, ironic way though, when the 2-0 Dallas Cowboys travel to Arizona to take on the 0-2 Arizona Cardinals, the Dallas Cowboys are 12.5-point favorites in this game, and I'm going to take Dallas hard and easily, -12.5, and Dallas straight up. So, and you could argue, in anybody in the comment section, you could ask, why are you not as confident in Kansas City compared to Dallas? I will explain that in a second, but, I know it's a half-point difference, but we'll see. But that's why I like Dallas here -12.5 and Dallas straight up. Then on the Sunday night game, in the rematch of the Immaculate Reception game, when the 1-1 or 0-2 Pittsburgh Steelers travel to Las Vegas to take on the 1-1 Las Vegas Raiders, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 1-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Las Vegas here in a slight upset, +1, and the Las Vegas Raiders straight up. And then in the last Monday night doubleheader, when the 2-0 Philadelphia Eagles travel to Tampa Bay in a battle of undefeateds, very surprisingly for a lot of people, probably with Tampa Bay being 2-0 themselves, to face the 2-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Philadelphia Eagles are 6.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Philadelphia Eagles here -6.5 and Philadelphia Eagles straight up. And in the last game of the weekend, a rematch of the Super Bowl 2 years ago, Super Bowl 56, when the 1-1 Los Angeles Rams travel to Cincinnati to take on the 0-2 Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals are a 2-point favorite in this game, and probably maybe my most bold pick of the week, regardless, and I will say this in my video right now, regardless if Joe Burrow is able to play or not, and I will stick to my guns on this, regardless if he's able to play or not, I'm going to take the Los Angeles Rams +2 and the Los Angeles Rams straight up. Alright, it's time for my quick thoughts on each game. The San Francisco 49ers over the New York Giants. So, let me just say this to the New York Giant fans. Congratulations for pulling off an epic comeback that, if it didn't happen, you would have been the laughingstock of the league, and I honestly think you would have had to break glass on every single thing that you thought of the Giants' take, of the Giants' staff, of the Giants' players. You would have had to break that false safe open, and everything would have been open to up to conversation. They were outscored through the first 6 quarters of their season 60-0. And in that second half, the Giants offense decided to wake up. And Daniel Jones is the first player in Giants history, or he is the second player since 2000 to have 250 passing yards, 50 rushing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown in a half. The only other player that was able to do that since 2000 was Michael Vick. And Daniel Jones showed a lot of ability. Darren Waller, the big tight end they got from the Raiders, looked fantastic. He had a lot of big catches. Jalen Hyatt had 89 yards receiving and did really well. And it's the largest comeback win for the Giants since 1949. So essentially, all my audience, we're never alive to watch. Heck, most people today, we're not alive to see the last time the Giants made that big of a comeback. And they were 0-150 in those previous moments of trailing by 21 plus points. So with all that being said, congrats to the Giants for that part. Unfortunately, it comes at a cost of Saquon Barkley. Late in the game, as they were setting up the game-winning field goal, he gets rolled up on and has suffered a ankle sprain. They don't know if it's a high or low ankle sprain, but I think that was the death knell of anybody having any hope for the Giants to compete. I think, honestly, with how they looked against the Cowboys, I think that the Giants-Cardinals game, from my personal opinion, that was just how bad the Arizona Cardinals are to be how good the New York Giants can be. I'm glad they won the game because I actually was able to get both my against the spread and straight-up pick correct on that because the Cardinals had such a big lead. But I don't think the Giants are really going to play that well against this 49er team. Look, especially with Saquon likely being out, it's going to be Matt Breida and another one of the running backs. The offensive line looked whipped, and I can't imagine against that Niners defensive line, with all the talent they have, how that's going to be. I don't think Daniel Jones is going to have a great game. And they're playing an Niner team that was cooking and rolling. Christian McCaffrey running the ball incredibly well. He's leading the league in rushing at 268 yards through 2 games. He is definitely showing every dollar that he was worth from that contract or from that trade that the Niners got him last year. And they had not lost a game with Christian McCaffrey in the regular season that started. And for Brock Purdy in that offense, in 6 of the 7 games he has played in the regular season that he started, 30 points at least every game. And I do not think with that Giants offense, with how bad that offensive line is, with the rookie talent they have at guard, Evan Neal, who isn't looking great, Andrew Thomas, who looked like he's gotten whipped, a few times and overpaid at left tackle, they're not going to be able to score 30 points. And I think that's going to be a fairly easy game for the Niners to maintain. I also want to give the Niners this credit. They are, I think, the only team in the league with a top 3 offense and a top 3 defense in terms of points per game. So this is, to me, if you wanted to say Dallas was the number 1 team after what they've done, sure. But I really think the Niners are not that far off, and they're clearly the second best team in the NFC right now. And I think this game is just going to be an absolute mismatch for the Giants to have to deal with, especially with them being without Saquon, more than likely. I do think it's also a tough week because it's a short week. They're not even going home. They're staying out in Arizona for a few days before they have to go to San Jose on Thursday, which was a smart thing to do. But I just think in this kind of environment, with the Saquon injury looming and how bad the Giants have looked for a majority of the season compared to a half, I think there's going to be an absolute rout from the 49ers. And here's the fun fact for this game. In this overall series from the Niners and Giants, regular and postseason, they have played 42 games against each other. They are 21-21, respectively. So this 43rd game will be the tiebreaker to see which franchise will be better, the 49ers or the Giants. And I think this round easily with what the Niners have offensively, defensively. Brandon Ayuk got hurt but came back. I think this round easily goes to the team by the Bay, the San Francisco 49ers. That's what I like San Francisco here, minus 10.5, and San Francisco straight up. The next game, the Cleveland Browns over the Tennessee Titans. This is a game to me to where I am just going to go with the better defense and the better quarterback. I do want to say this to the Titans. First of all, congratulations. You snapped an 8-game losing streak by playing the Chokers, the Los Angeles Chokers. Good for you. And Ryan Tannehill had a solid game. Also, he had a good rushing touchdown on that 12-yard scramble. And a great 70-yard throw to Traylon Burks, so anybody watched the game. And also, their kicking's been fixed due to Nick Folk. Remember I told you last week that over the past 4 years, there was no team that had worse place kicking percentage than the Tennessee Titans. Nick Folk this year so far, 7 for 7. Fantastic. And even though Austin Eckler wasn't in the game, a huge part of why the Titans were able to grind out this victory was because they held the Chargers to 61 total rushing yards. Last week when they played the Dolphins in that shootout, they gave up 233. So, the Titans, that's a good fundamental victory. And, I think that's just more of the Chargers with how expensive that choking, but that was a good win. And that's the thing. I think the key thing for me with the Browns is I'm going to go with the better quarterback and a bit of the better talent aspect. I like Nick Chubb going against that Titans defensive line. I think Deshaun can make a few more plays than Tannehill can. And the Browns, I guess, sans guard tonight when they play Pittsburgh. They actually have the best defense in the National Football League in both terms of yards and points, the way they shut down the Bengals. So, and I think having the Titans try to move the ball, I think Nick Chubb and Deshaun Watson with the offense, sans the injuries to Amari Cooper and right tackle Jack Conklin. And Amari's probably not playing tonight, so for anybody watching this in fantasy before the game starts, just a quick FYI. But yeah, injuries right now are really big for Cleveland. But that's why I'm taking Tennessee plus 3.5, because I don't know how they're going to look tonight against Pittsburgh. But I think with what the Browns have, the confidence they have, Jim Schwartz as the defensive coordinator, I think he can outplay Tannehill in this game. And I just trust the Browns staff to move the ball more effectively than what I see out of the Titans with what their roster has and what their defensive matchup's going to be. So, I also want to give a shout out to Grant Delpit, who was leading the team in total tackles, the great safety. That was supposed to be paired to Greedy, but unfortunately it didn't work out for Greedy that well. And the teams have split the last 6 meetings, so I'm just going to go with the better quarterback, the little bit healthier roster, and the more trusted defense in this game. Could I see the Titans winning this game? Sure. I think the Browns, depending on how they look, depending on if there's any big injuries, that could change my pick, obviously. I did the same thing with the Jets-Packers last week. Anybody watched, I sent out a comment saying a pick update after Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles. I was changing my pick. If anything happens, I will do the same thing. But if nothing happens, I'm going to take the Cleveland Browns here based on the better quarterback, the better defense, and I just trust the Browns offense to be able to effectively move the ball better than what I could see out of Tannehill and his offense going against the Browns defense. So, that's why I like Cleveland here straight up, but Tennessee plus 3.5. The next game, the Detroit Lions over the Atlanta Falcons. This one is a bit interesting to me because I've been very high on the Lions. Shout out to Half Moon's Picks, another great prognosticator. Please go check him out. And the Lions played incredibly well. The Lions offense has been humming. They've been fantastic. But it basically came down to Jared Goff throwing the pick 6 to Seahawk rookie Trey Brown, which ended a 383 consecutive pass attempt streak without an interception. That was the third longest in NFL history. And Amon-Ra St. Brown went down, and David Montgomery hurt his quad, and I just read that he's going to be out for a couple weeks. And Jameer Gibbs should have a much bigger role in this offense now with Montgomery going down for a few weeks. So anybody that has him in fantasy, be thankful you have him. And he did have 14 touches for 56 yards yesterday, which was 4 yards a touch, which is pretty solid. And to me, it's just one of those things to where I look at the Lions and I say, I know they can score points. And I like what the Falcons have done. First 2-0 start since 2017. They really grind out the ball really effectively well. And Desmond Ridder, 6 games. He's had 4 home games out of his 6 starts. 4-0 at home, which is incredible. Career high in rushing and passing yards yesterday. He made some really good scrambles, to make some big plays. Drake London had a few nice big catches. Bijan Robinson, who's their best offensive player, has had 255 scrimmage yards for 2 games. Definitely an offensive rookie of the year candidate, and probably, in my opinion, the offensive rookie of the year favorite. And they got the huge 4th down conversion, which was a bit gutsy. Even though it was still a 1-point game, they actually got to drain more of the clock, and it went past the 2-minute warning, so that the Packers really couldn't effectively move the ball better, down the field, even though Jordan Love did have that really dumb QB sneak. But I look at this game and I go, look, even though the Falcons are playing the 5th worst defense in points per game in the Detroit Lions, I just don't know in this type of environment with how the Falcons really try to play football. I don't know if they can get into a shootout with the Lions. I have confidence in the Lions offense, even with Montgomery being out and the Amon-Ra St. Brown injury being key, and Taylor Decker, he missed yesterday, which was significant in some ways, that I just don't trust that the Falcons can actually win a shootout with the Detroit Lions. If the Falcons defense can play effectively enough and get them a few stops, then I would be concerned, because that means the Falcons offense will have more opportunities going against a weaker defense. But I just don't see that happening. I feel this game, I feel like the Lions can score 28, 32 points, and I just don't know, and I do not believe the Falcons, with the way they run their offense, that their defense can hold them enough, and I don't think they can match score for score. It should be a great game. And it's going to be a big milestone for Detroit, because the last time Detroit beat Atlanta in Detroit, you have to go all the way back to 2007, the last time when these two teams played, with Detroit being the home team, that Detroit was able to win the game. And I also think the other factor that I'm going to go with, that hopefully maybe Dan Campbell learns, Dan Campbell is part of this new wave of coaches that don't like fourth downs in certain situations, which is incredibly frustrating. And I believe that aggressiveness going forward on that 4th and 2 from their own 45 cost them the game. And, so I hope Dan Campbell, I believe he'll clean that up, and hopefully he'll be able to make some more measured and correct decisions to move the ball and to have trust in his defense and not give the Falcons short fields. But I just feel like with the Lions, with their offensive line hopefully getting healthy, they should be able to limit the Falcons' pass rush. I think Jared Goff plays well. He's been a much better home quarterback over the last 2 seasons compared to a road quarterback, and I just don't think the Falcons can outshoot the Detroit Lions in the game I'm expecting. And I'm going to take Detroit minus 3.5 here, because I feel like Detroit should be able to kind of play effectively enough to cover that spread. I have more confidence in. That's why I like Detroit here, minus 3.5, and Detroit straight up. The next game, the New Orleans Saints over the Green Bay Packers. This is one to where I'm going with the better quarterback and the better defense. And if the Packers were able to hold on, I probably would have taken the Packers. But watching that second half, seeing Bijan Robinson, seeing Desmond Ridder with his feet and his arm make big conversion after big conversion on this Packers defense that played so well week 1, though you could argue that was maybe just how bad the Bears are offensively and Bears offensive line. I just can't trust the Jordan Love going up against a quality Saints defense with guys like Curtis Granderson, Demario Davis, who is leading the team in 10 combined tackles, Marshawn Lattimore, Marcus May. I'm trying to think of some of the other defenders on this Saints team. Cam Jordan, obviously Cameron Jordan. This Saints team is just very well skilled defensively. Adebo, PJ Adebo is a good safety. I just think the Saints defense going into Lambeau can play effective enough to hold Jordan Love to a modest game that I think will be effective. Even though I do want to say for the Saints, the concern I have is that the Saints were horrible in the red zone last week against the Titans. Fortunately, they were able to hold the Titans to 5 field goals to basically hold on to the game. But I feel like with the Packers, that with the injuries as well, because Christian Watson's been out the first 2 games by hamstring injury, Aaron Jones couldn't play, and David Bakhtiari couldn't play. So, and I'm going to say this, I'm still going to take the Saints regardless if those people play or not, but you clearly could see that those moments and those players could have had a significant impact in the game, and I just trust, even though I know Kamara's not there, I trust the Saints with the runners they have, the Jamal Williams and the other backup, that's name's coming away from me right now. They should be able to run the ball effectively because they're going up against the second worst rushing defense in the league. So, I do want to give Jordan Love the credit. He is the 3rd quarterback to have 3 passing touchdowns in the first 2 games of his single season, joining Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. And again, the 3 touchdowns, I really love the touchdown pass to Wicks. If you rewatch the game, that was a tremendous pass. The one to Reed was just a nice jet motion play that got him around. But in this game, after what I saw out of the Packers defense and with the Packers injuries, I'm just going to trust the Saints to be able to stay healthier, be more focused, and I think they can run the ball and make a few more key plays with Derek Carr that I don't think Jordan Love can make right now. So, so that's why I like New Orleans here, +2 in New Orleans straight up. The next game, the Miami Dolphins over the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson and the Broncos. Boy, is this sad. Like, and I'm a big Russell Wilson fan, but his time in Denver is starting. The hourglass is starting to fall, and he's got very little time left. There was just after that second half, after that first half, where he was 5 of 6, had 140 yards, 2 great touchdown passes. The throw to Marvin Mims, who caught his first NFL touchdown, was a beauty. In the second half, it just all blew away. He had 2 bad turnovers, a debatable face mask call, but I probably wouldn't have called it. And he only had 1 big, huge pass play, which was a Hail Mary, which Brian Johnson called, which was incredible coordination and catch from him. But it just, I feel like for Russ, like, this time is winding down. And these were 2 games against the Raiders and the Commanders that you had to win if you were the Broncos. You had to win these. Because, you know, and you could argue with everything we've had with Aaron Rodgers. Like, their next 4 games are, I believe, Miami, Chicago, the Jets, and Kansas City. So 2 of those you already could chalk up to L's anyway. Okay, even though Kansas City hasn't been the sharpest. And like I said, I have Miami winning this one. And the other 2 you have to win if you have any chance of trying to still somewhat be competitive. But I think the other issue that I think Denver I have concerns about from the coaching perspective are the penalties and the lack of third down conversions. And you can say part of that's Russ, part of that's coaching. But 19 penalties in 2 games for the Broncos. And it just seems like every time the Broncos have a key opportunity to move, they get smacked with a penalty that knocks it out. And Kareem Jackson, who's now knocked out Jacoby Myers and Logan Thomas in back-to-back games, I am surprised he's not getting suspended. Especially for the second one, because, you know, even that first one I could debate was a good hit that ended up being concussion. The second one, that was just a clear, dirty helmet shot, which knocked out Logan for the rest of the game. But just, the penalties are killer. And here's the crazy thing about the Broncos. Like, you know, Russell Wilson, he has had 17 games with the Broncos that he started. In 14 of those starts, they're in 1-score games. So essentially they have become Rocky Los Angeles. They become the Rocky Mountain Los Angeles Chargers. The Mile High Chargers. To where, like, they're literally in every game, regardless of offense, defense. And I heard this crazy stat from Get Up from Record. But I guess the offense is doing well enough because they actually scored the most points per possession in the NFL. So the offense is doing its job. It's just Vance Joseph and that defense, with all the talent they had not been able to generate a lot of pressure, or they just make stupid penalties that cost them the opportunity of games. So, and here's the problem. They're playing a Miami team that is a very solid, effective team. Tua, 5-0 against Bill Belichick. He has the best winning percentage against Bill Belichick out of any quarterback in NFL history with 4+ games played. That's 5-0. But it was their run game yesterday that was really effective and impressive. They had 30 carries for 145 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. I thought that the Dolphins really looked sharp. They look smooth. It looks crisp and effortless to see Mike McDaniel run an offense and see how wide open people are, see how simple the reads are, and how just simple it makes everything look. And I have to give the Dolphins and Vic Fangio a lot of credit. They gave up a lot of yards in those drives, but the turnovers and stops, they got 4 sacks from that Dolphins defense, and they got a few big stops when they needed them to get a significant victory. Though the Jalen Waddle injury, for anybody playing fantasy, that's a big moment of concern. He got hit in a helmet shot, and I don't believe he came back in the rest of the game. And I'm going to give Javon Holland, very underrated safety in this game, 11 combined tackles last night against a Pats team that really was trying to move the ball effectively. But Denver and Miami, this is one of those games to where I'm just going to trust Miami's team. Like, Vic Fangio knows a lot of the Denver, people. And he took over for Vance Joseph. He knows the Denver talent. He knows some of the... Bradley Chubb knows a lot of the Denver defenders. He can tell you a lot of the different tendencies. And I just feel like with the Dolphins being at home, playing out in that Miami Heat, no pun intended to the basketball team, I think the Dolphins easily win this game just with how effectively they'll be able to throw the ball, run the ball, and I just can't trust Russ in a shootout with Tua and the weapons to win a shootout against Tua and those weapons the way they're playing. So, that's why I like Miami here, -6.5, and Miami straight up. The next game, The Minnesota Vikings over the Los Angeles Chargers. This is a game to where you are literally watching the two collapsible, choke jobby, screw jobby, victory in the jaws of defeat in the jaws of victory teams in the league right now, in the Chargers and the Vikings. And I have to say this, Brandon Staley today should not have a job in the NFL. He deserves to be fired for how bad he has been. I tried to defend Staley for the last year or so because I thought he was a decent coach and they won a lot of games. But, talk about the king of the collapse. That's Brandon Staley. And his defense, that's the worst part, is that his defense is 30th ranked in points and 32nd in yards. That's with Khalil Mack. That's with Joey Bosa. That's with J.C. Jackson. That's with Derwin James. That's with Eric Kendricks. That's with 5 guys on your defense that are very talented. And you are giving up that many points and that many yards on a consistent clip, not only to the Dolphins, but the Titans, who have jack compared to the Dolphins offensively, besides Derrick Henry. And it's just like, it's brutal. Brandon Staley for his career, just like what I said about Russ for coaching, 13 of his 18 games are one-score losses. So this is just, the Los Angeles Chokers here. Like, it's their MO. And every year I do this, and it's stupid that I try to believe in these Chargers, and every year they literally choke the game away. And Justin Herbert, I'm just going to mention this out here. I know this might be the only person that says this. For a hot take, Justin Herbert's becoming the NFC version of his counterpart he's playing this weekend, Kirk Cousins. And look, the Vikings, they played well. Kirk Cousins has the 3rd or 4th highest passer rating for an 0-2 team since 1970 or 1950. I heard that sound on Thursday Night Football. Daniil Hunter had 3 great sacks against them. And Justin Jefferson, in 52 games, has reached 5,000 receiving yards. The fastest in NFL history for any receiver. And he had a phenomenal play that if it wasn't for, the desire to drive, the Vikings maybe could have won that game. And they had the 4 lost fumbles, which is the most they had in 15 years. But in a game like this, when you're deciding, where both teams are just so evenly matched up in weird running games, talent offensively, weird talent defensively, I went with 2 things. The home team and who I think was a better coach. And that to me is Kevin O'Connell and the Minnesota Vikings. And I'm going to kick myself if the Chargers win, but it's like even if the Chargers win, they're going to win off the Vikings choking, or it's going to be the other way around. The Vikings win because of the Chargers choking. So, in this one I'm going to go with the better coach and the home field advantage, which goes to Minnesota. Should be a wildly entertaining game. And for anybody, that should be wildly entertaining watching those offenses go back and forth. But at the end of the day, in this kind of game, where you don't really trust anything, I'm going to trust the better coach and the home team, which is the Minnesota Vikings. So that's why I like Minnesota here against the spread and a pick 'em, and Minnesota straight up. The next game, the New England Patriots over the New York Jets. This is one to me where the New York Jets showed that the whole Zach Wilson thing was not how good the Jets were. It was how bad the Bills have been against the Jets. The New York Jets had 43 plays of offense. If you take away the 68-yard touchdown from Zach Wilson to Garrett Wilson, this offense averaged 3.5 yards per play and 147 total yards. This offense is horrible. Zach Wilson is an absolute bot. He is a scrub. He is a bust of a quarterback. He's not even a CFL, USFL, or XFL quarterback. That's how bad he's been. And it's also the problem of saying, for everybody out there that wanted to give Russ all the blame for last year with Denver. Quick aside. See Nathaniel Hackett out there? See Mr. Hatchet Man there in New York? He's making Zach Wilson look even worse. I actually feel sympathy for Zach Wilson a little bit because he's got Nathaniel Hackett over there. Nathaniel the Hackett calling plays, and he had 10 rushes by his running backs for 24 yards combined. That's Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook, and Michael Carter. Michael Carter's kind of an irrelevant guy. But Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall are very talented running backs. And those guys, all 3 of them had 24 yards on 10 touches for the entire game. That's pathetic. And, look, and the reason why I'm going with the Patriots is just the history of this series. Look, Christian Gonzalez, first of all, made an incredible interception on Tyreek Hill. What a play to get your first interception, intercepting a ball from Tua against the fastest receiver in the league. Job well done to him. And I also want to shout out Brendan Schuler who had one of the most innovative field goal blocks I had seen in the league. What a job by him to block that field goal. And here's the here are the two stats why I'm going with the Patriots. Mac Jones, so far, offensively, he had that one horrible interception to Xavier Howard and the one tip ball pick to Darius Slay. But besides that, he's got 69% completion percentage, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and Bill O'Brien has really effectively changed the offense in a competent way that makes Mac Jones look like an actual NFL quarterback. And it's the history of this series. The New York Jets have lost 14 straight times. And honestly, everybody thought, including me, once they got Rodgers, that streak was probably going to end. Unfortunately, Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles. He could be back possibly in 4 months. I don't think it's going to matter. And here is Zach Wilson in in his career against Bill Belichick. In the games he has played over the last couple, 2 seasons, he has completed 51% of his passes for 693 yards, 2 touchdowns, 7 interceptions with a 51 quarterback rating. I know the Jets defense can be great, but it's like if you're going to tell me Zach Wilson and Hackett going against O'Brien and Mac, I will take Bill O'Brien and Mac Jones every day of the week and twice on Sunday to score enough points and to be effective to win this game for the Patriots. Could the Jets win? Sure. The Jets, they have enough offensive talent, and if Zach can pull his head out of his rear end, maybe they could win. But in this spot, with the history of this series, with what I've seen out of Bill O'Brien and Mac Jones, I will take Bill O'Brien and Mac Jones to beat Nathaniel Hackett and Zach Wilson every day of the week and twice on Sunday. So that's why I like New England here, -3 and New England straight up. The next game, the Buffalo Bills over the Washington Commanders. Look, this was a fantastic game for the Buffalo Bills. No turnovers yesterday. They had 4 huge fumbles and picks by Josh Allen. And I'm going to give Josh Allen his credit. 5th game with 80% completion percentage and 3 touchdowns with no interceptions. And there is no quarterback that has had more games like that. He's had 5 in his career before the age of 30 than Josh Allen did. Also, they actually had an effective running game for the first time in a while. James Cook, Dalvin Cook's brother, ran for 123 yards rushing, a career high, and it was shocking because the Bills actually looked like the team that a lot of people thought. So I was very happy about that. The Buffalo Bills, they handled their business. The Raiders were pretty much done from jump. Josh Jacobs had -2 yards rushing, a career low for him. And it basically felt like after the 3rd quarter, he basically just quit, or he had forgotten about the game. But I was really impressed with how Buffalo played. And same thing with Washington. So here's the interesting story for Washington. So for Washington, they are 2-0 for the first time since 2011. Also, that was the largest comeback win they've had since 2015, an 18-point comeback. I believe the last time that was the Tampa Bay game, the You Like That game, where Kirk Cousins led that 18-point comeback against the Buccaneers. I also want to give a shout out to Chase Young, who had his first sack in about 2 years after all the injuries he suffered over the last 2 years to get that sack. Very happy for him. And Brian Robinson had 2 great runs. He had an overall effective running day. He ran for about 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. First career 2-touchdown game for Brian Robinson. Terry McLaurin had a fantastic catch. And Sam Howell. I will tell you this. If you watch Sam Howell through, the first few games of his career, through 3 games, I would say he's 52% good and 48% unknown. I actually like what I saw out of Howell, especially with those throws to Logan Thomas and Terry McLaurin, those big, chunk plays. I think Sam Howell can actually hold on to this job a bit longer than people might have thought, especially after that Week 1 performance against the Cardinals. So, again, and to every Commander fan, to be fair, I took you Week 1. I have nothing against you all, and you can keep proving me wrong. But I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills here. I just believe they're the better team. I think that they should be able to run the ball a little more effectively. The offensive line injuries and Logan Thomas injury do concern me. And I just think, Josh Allen should be able to make some runs that I don't think Sam Howell will be able to. And I just trust the Bills enough to win this game. I'm going to take Washington here plus 6.5, though, because they are going to Washington, going to Landover, which is a very tough place to play. And while the Commanders have been playing, they are 2-0 under the Josh Harris regime. And I do feel like they have a lot more optimism for the first time in a very long time due to how the Commanders have been playing. So, and how Eric Bieniemy has done a fantastic job with the Commanders' offense. So, Hopefully he gets that coaching job this upcoming cycle, but we'll see. So that's why I like Buffalo here straight up, but Washington plus 6.5. The next game, the Jacksonville Jaguars over the Houston Texans. Jacksonville, that was bad. Trevor Lawrence had got sacked the second most times in his career, which was 4. It was the first time since week 5 of last year that the Jags could not score an offensive touchdown. And it definitely was bad. It was tough. Travis Etienne got hurt into the game about middle of the third quarter. And as tough and as awkward as Jacksonville looked through the entire game against Kansas City, they didn't look like Houston. The only positive thing that I will tell people about the Houston Texans was I was happy that former Alabama wide receiver John Mechie caught his first career reception. He was the receiver, of course, that had to deal with leukemia all last year, so it was great to know that he got all that cleared, and now he's back in the league and making his climb up the NFL receiver list. So I was very happy he was able to catch his first reception. But besides that, there was nothing else really going on. I think one of the big reasons, and I don't know if Tunsil or one of the other offensive linemen, 4 of the 5 starting offensive linemen that Houston was projecting to have this year were out for the game. That led to 6 sacks by the Indianapolis Colts defense. I think Jacksonville, who, when they played Indianapolis a couple weeks ago, they got 3 sacks from Josh Allen, the defensive end, not the quarterback. But I just think with Jacksonville's pass rush, with the talent they have, with Jacksonville's secondary, with how effective they were in getting a few turnovers and generating a good rush, I just do not feel good for C.J. Stroud in this game. Though it will be a big moment, though, for Trevor Lawrence, because the fun fact for his career, through his couple years, he has never beaten the Houston Texans at home. He has never beaten the Houston Texans at home for Jacksonville, which is surprising. And I think that Houston, with C.J. Stroud, if they can somehow protect him, I think he can make a few more throws than you'd think. But I think with Jacksonville, they're mad. They're motivated. I just feel like they have much more talent around the offensive and defensive sides of the ball that will effectively guide them and roll them to a victory over an inferior Texan team. So that's why I like Jacksonville here, minus 9.5, and Jacksonville straight up. The next game, the Baltimore Ravens over the Indianapolis Colts. This is one to where Anthony Richardson getting hurt basically sealed my fate for this game. I don't know if I would have taken the Colts outright, even Richardson played, but I feel like he is definitely, out of all the quarterbacks of this class, he's definitely the one that has the most talent and probably has the biggest upside that I've seen so far from his 2 games early on. But he had 2 rushing touchdowns, which put him up to 3 rushing touchdowns for the season, but he got knocked out with a concussion that he reported, and so I don't know if he was going to play or not, and we'll see through the protocol. So I will say this, if Anthony Richardson does get past concussion protocol, I will change my against the spread pick and take Indianapolis plus 8. If he doesn't, and it's Gardner Minshew, I will stick with the Ravens at minus 8. And just like I mentioned, the Colts offensive line is incredibly impressive. 6 sacks against the Texas offensive line, but they're playing a Ravens team that is incredibly motivated and on a roll. Lamar Jackson now career all-time 7-2 against Cincinnati Bengals, 291 yards from scrimmage, 2 fantastic throws and catches to Zay Flowers and bust receiver Nelson Aguilar, which basically sealed the win there. Justin Tucker went 2 or 3 from field goals. Was a little shocked he didn't make that 59-yarder, but it is 59, and at the end of the day, as much as a Ravens fan, we love Justin Tucker. He can be human, and he can miss kicks. So, and also while I'm going with the Ravens, this is fairly easy. Since the Peyton Manning era ended after 2011, the Baltimore Ravens and Colts have played each other 4 times since then. The Ravens have not lost a home game against the Colts in the post-Peyton Manning era. So, this is one to me to where, do I think the Colts, if Richardson can clear, if he can, and I think that's the other question for the Colts as well. Can Anthony Richardson stay healthy? That I don't know. Because through 2 games, he hasn't been able to finish a game. Last week was at the very, 2 weeks ago was at the very end, and yesterday was about midway through the second quarter, and he left after he reported concussion. Even though I am very happy that he was able to see the signs that he reported a concussion and, was able to check himself out clearly. But for the team's sake, that's very bad because you have to be concerned about his health. But yeah, in this game, I think the Ravens, Odell Beckham should be fine. The offensive line should be able to get healthier. But I feel like with the Ravens, with how Lamar's been playing and how offense is looking, I feel really good that the Ravens should be able to hold on and win this game effectively with what we've seen from Gus and Lamar offensively. So, that's why I like Baltimore here, minus 8. and Baltimore straight up. And once again, if Anthony Richardson gets cleared, I will take, and I'll put it in one of my notes, that I have the Colts +8, but Baltimore still regardless, straight up. So, the next game. The Seattle Seahawks over the Carolina Panthers. This is one to where I got to give Pete Carroll his credit. Like I said last week, if anybody watched the video, Pete Carroll and the Seahawks have one of the best East Coast records over the past 5 years. He's now improved their record to 15-6. And as much as I relied on Geno last week, I got to give a tip of the cap to Geno Smith this week because he played his rear end off against the Lions. And here's the stat line. I wrote this down because I want to track this out. So Geno Smith, his last 2 games against the Detroit Lions, as a Seahawk, 77.4% completion percentage, 648 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and he's led an offense to 42.5 points per game. That is just remarkable. And that's kudos to Geno, but by God, did the Lions defense suck. Because a man should not be that effective and that much of a dart thrower in 2 games where you had it. You can't, 42.5 points per game? You're never going to win games like that, but good for Geno. Though I do have a concern for Seahawks fans, I would tell you, Jason Myers, missing a 55-yarder wide left, I have little less problem with that. Missing the 45-yarder, that was a problem. He's now 3 for 6 this year with field goals. I think he's got a couple years left in that contract. He's probably got, for me, 3 to 4 games left. If he's missing 2 or 3 more kicks, you got to bench him and find another kicker. So, the Panthers, for me, like I said, the Panthers game hasn't started, but I would just say this from what I saw at week 1. I think my biggest concerns are, 1, J.C. Horn is going to be out for an extended amount of time. He could be put on the injured reserve due to a hamstring injury, and they lost one of their guards for 4 weeks. So that Panthers offensive line, which was already shaky, is going to have a bigger problem tonight and moving forward without another one of their key linemen. And here is the key stat why I'm going with Seattle, both against the spread and straight up. Since 2005, the Seahawks are 14-5 all-time against rookie quarterbacks, and that includes the Pete Carroll era, so that's a little past into Mike Holmgren and into the Pete Carroll. So they do not lose to rookie quarterbacks that very much at all, especially going into that Seattle environment with the confidence they have and the boost they have from yesterday. I think the Seahawks handle their business effectively and consistently to win this game. So, that's why I like Seattle here, -4.5, and Seattle straight up. The next game, the Kansas City Chiefs over the Chicago Bears. This is one to where I'm taking Kansas City because it's easy and it makes sense. But I really wasn't impressed with the Chiefs' offense. Like, there were moments with the Jags that they had 2 turnovers that they couldn't capitalize. And Mahomes looked up and down. I'm going to give Sky Moore a shout out, though, for getting his first career touchdown. And Stone Cold Chris Jones being a massive difference maker in the league. For that team, 1.5 sacks, leading that defense to pitch a non-touchdown shutout. Sky Moore got his first career touchdown. And Travis Kelce, he comes back. And once again, the Chiefs are able to find him in the end zone. Fantastic job. And I'm just concerned because they're playing the Bears. Like, I think the Chiefs, they can kind of get a get-right game, hopefully, against this Bears team because this Bears team sucks. The defense sucks. The offense sucks. Matt Eberflus sucks. Everything about Chicago. And it just sucks right now. Okay? And again, I'll just keep mentioning, Justin Fields is basically, I'm going to start saying, he's black Zach Wilson. I think he is that bad. Okay, here was a crazy stat that I was watching this morning. Justin Fields has more incompletions and sacks with more than 3 seconds in the pocket than completions. So that means that when he's had 3 or more seconds this year through 2 games, he has 23 sacks or incompletions. He's had 20 completions in the pocket with 3 or more seconds in the pocket to make his throws. So that's horrible. And I'm just going like, if you're getting sacked, he's already been sacked 10 times this year. Last year he led the league in sacks at 55. What are you going to do against this Chiefs defense, which has been absolutely on fire? They just got 4 sacks on Trevor Lawrence. Even though I will say this for the Bears offense, they did get DJ Moore a little more involved, so I was happy about that. But yeah, I just feel like this is an absolute mismatch, and I'm just going to keep telling people, and I'll keep saying this every week, Justin Fields is not that guy. Anybody that believed in the Bears hype, anybody out there, and you can come, that guy's not good. And I will tell you, the biggest reason why is the alma mater he went to. Every Ohio State quarterback that comes out of that university is a bum. Every one of them. And tell me when I'm telling lies. Anybody that gets that reference? I'm talking to America. Another reference. I'm talking to America here. Justin Fields is the black Zach Wilson. And honestly, I actually feel I feel like he's getting to that path. He's worse than Zach Wilson. Because Justin Fields has more talent. Justin Fields, has some more stuff than Zach Wilson. I just don't know. And to me, okay, I think that's where the issue I have concern. But I'm going to give the Bears this. If Justin Fields can make some athletic, or get back to his athleticism, I think they can cover this 13-point spread. I don't think, if the Chiefs blow out the Bears, now you're looking at that game against Denver where you're like, oh God, the 0-3 Broncos and the 0-3 Bears, who are you going to take? And honestly, you don't know. That's going to be a brutal game, but I just think this Bears team is in for a rude awakening. And when they fire Eberflus at the end of this year, or even in the middle of the year, if it keeps getting this bad, I think that there's going to be wholesale changes in most spots besides the GM in that organization due to how bad this entire team's been. So I'm going to give the Bears a benefit of the doubt because of how big the number is. I will take them plus 13, but I think this game could get very messy. And I just hope the Bears offense can wake up a bit and Justin Fields doesn't make as many tough or bad decisions against a Chief team that's trying to get a get-right game for their offense, which they could get this coming Sunday. So, that's all I can say to you straight up at Chicago plus 13. The next game, the Dallas Cowboys over the Arizona Cardinals. Not a lot has to be said here. The Dallas Cowboys are arguably the best team in the league. The Arizona Cardinals are by far the worst. I saw the stat last week when they were talking about the Jets game. The last time the Cowboys had that big of a shutout to start their season, they went to the Super Bowl. I'm not going to go that far yet, but here's the thing. The Cardinals showed how bad they were by giving up a 20-plus point lead to the Giants. This game could be an absolute downright thing. I'm being dead serious. I would bench Dak, Tony, and CD. I think you could objectively do that. You could take away the Cowboys' best running back, the Cowboys' best quarterback, and their best wide receiver. Bench all three of them, and they still could kick the tar out of them with their backup running back, Cooper Rush, and Brandon Cooks or Michael Gallup being the leading receiver. I feel that strongly about it. And Micah Parsons, he's right now, in my opinion, the Defensive Player of the Year leader in terms of how dominant he's been through 2 weeks. And also they're the 15th in NFL history to score 70 points and give up 10 or fewer through their first 2 games. The last team to do that was the 2019 Patriots, who ended up making the playoffs. And, so that could be an omen, but I just think with this Cowboys team, they are just clearly firing and rolling on all cylinders that I just do not see in Arizona. And I feel like depending on what this game comes out for Arizona, they should really seriously consider just sitting Kyler for the year. Let Josh Dobbs take the beating for the next 14 games and move forward with a new quarterback and a new era moving forward. So that's why I like Dallas here, minus 12.5, and Dallas straight up. If they can win, they've won by 20 and 40, so 12.5. I feel confident of how bad the Cardinals have been. They can at least cover that. So that's why I like Dallas here, minus 12.5, and Dallas straight up. And the final 3 games, the Las Vegas Raiders over the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is one to where I'm going to trust the Raiders offense to have a bit more of a better job against the Steelers team that they have TJ Watt, but they really haven't had that much other pass rush, and I just don't trust Kenny Pickett going up against that Raiders defensive line, even without Chandler Jones. And also, it's a motivating game for Robert Spillane. Robert Spillane, the former Steeler who signed with the Raiders this past offseason, had 14 total tackles. And I think with some of the other Raider defenders, I think he will do a good enough job. The injuries to Deontay Johnson and Cam Hayward are significant. Even though I do think for the Raiders themselves, Devontae Adams is in the concussion protocol now as well. So I am still going to take the Raiders regardless if he gets cleared from the protocol or not. But it definitely makes that game a lot more interesting if Devontae is not cleared from the concussion protocol. I also think they'll be able to get the ball to Hunter Renfrow a bit more. He only had 1 catch for 23 yards yesterday, and Jimmy, uncharacteristically, had 2 significant turnovers, which were frustrating. And I just think with no Deontay and no Cam, also, the Raiders have won 4 straight home games against Pittsburgh. The last time the Steelers went into Oakland or Las Vegas and won a game, you had to go back to, I think 2004 or 6. So, they have not won in Vegas or the Raiders' place for a little bit now. 4 straight times. So, again, depending on how the Steelers look, I might change my pick. But, but I feel like with how bad I think the Steelers and Kenny Pickett are going to be, I feel confident enough to say that Jimmy Garoppolo at home with the feeling, and the way he's been moving the ball and knowing how Jimmy plays, I think Jimmy Garoppolo is able to outplay Kenny Pickett with the offenses in both hands. And I think the Raiders get one more stop than the Steelers due to Max Crosby being a little bit better than TJ Watt going against a weaker offensive line in the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's why I like Las Vegas here, +1 and Las Vegas straight up. And then the Monday night games, the Philadelphia Eagles over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jalen Hurts is 16-1 in his last 17 games. He also has 10 games now with 2 rushing touchdowns or more. That is second to Cam, I believe it was 11. The tush push is alive and well. It is the skyhook in NFL circles. It's the most unstoppable play, but it feels a little dirty after how they go. The pressure from the Eagles was fantastic. They held Alexander Mattison, the Vikings running back, to under 40 yards, and he really couldn't get anything going. Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis look like the best defensive tackle duo coming up in the league together. DeAndre Swift had a fantastic game as well. Career high in rushing yards at 160 plus. And I just think for the Bucs, as well as they played, and effectively, with Baker getting to Mike Evans, phenomenal. I just think the Eagles are the better team and the better consistent pass rush. And I feel like for Baker, all this momentum they had, I think Jalen's not going to turn it over as often. And I think Jalen outplays Baker in a big road game to get the Eagles to 3-0. That's like Philadelphia -6.5. Philadelphia straight up. And lastly, the Los Angeles Rams over the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm taking the Rams here because of Joe Burrow and his injury. Look, the Rams, Matthew Stafford had 2 horrible picks that cost the Rams the game. Cam Akers is now on a trade debate. And the story of Puka Nacua. Cooper Kupp hasn't been there, and I feel like Puka Nacua has been a revelation. He has 25 receptions through the first 2 games. That's the 3rd most in NFL history through 2 games. Only, I think, Michael Thomas and or somebody else had more receptions through 2 games, the first 2 career games. And Ernest Jones has been the defensive story for them. 19 combined tackles through the first 2 games. Joe Burrow threw for a career low 35 yards in the first half after he reset his new low after week 1, where he threw for 40. And Joe Mixon, though, had an okay game with 95 scrimmage yards. But the biggest reason why I'm going with the Rams, regardless if Joe, is because of his re-aggravated calf injury. He's not 100%. That offensive line looks whipped and beat up. We got a good amount of pressure on him, and that was from some of our better defenders. And I think the Rams, with how they've been playing, especially with Kyron Williams and Puka and Tutu Atwell and Tyler, I think the Rams are going to be able to effectively move the ball, and Joe Burrow is going to be running around for his life with Aaron Donald, maybe getting flashbacks in the Super Bowl, that I just don't think the Bengals are going to be able to climb into this 0-2 hole themselves as secure as they have done the last couple times. So, should be a great game, and if Joe Burrow does play, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals win, but of how weak and how ineffective he's looked with the injury, I'm going to take the Rams regardless because I feel like they've been a more effective and more consistent football team at this moment through the first couple weeks. So, that's like the Los Angeles Rams here, +2, and the Los Angeles Rams straight up. But that is it. So those are my picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, and subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page. And until next week, this is Matt Novak signing off, saying good luck to all players, coaches, fellow prognosticators, and fantasy players. And until next time, everybody, so long.